Welcome to a community built of tomorrow's business leaders. Hey guys, I'm William Freitas, and this is the Socius Podcast. Socius, welcome back to another episode. Today we've got David Sutantyo.
Yes.
David, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And you run 12 Grains Capital.
That is correct.
Tell me a little bit about your background, what 12 Grains Capital does, how you got into that position, and kind of like what has led you to be to where you are today.
My background, where do I start? So I moved to Australia, to Sydney, probably more than 15 years ago now, 17 years. In fact, I came to Sydney in 2008. I didn't plan to come to Sydney. I actually said to my dad, I wanted to go to Jakarta. And that was after my high school. I wanted to go to Jakarta because my friends were there. And he said to me, why don't you just go to Sydney? I thought it was a joke. And fast forward, I was sitting on a plane to Sydney. I started there. I studied IT, which I really, really, really hate. I still remember that when I first came to Sydney, I spent my last couple of $100 in my bank account to learn how to make coffee because that was my passion. I like making coffee. I wanted to open up a coffee shop back in the days. I eventually opened up my own coffee shop, and in tandem, this was back in 2015, 2016, I wanted to purchase my own property. And I was thinking, I had no idea how to purchase a property. I had no idea about how the financing works, how property market works. So I decided to take out a mortgage broking course. I learned a little bit about that, and I was thinking, might as well make money out of it. And I got into mortgage broking back in 2015, 2016. And I was running that in tandem with my cafe business. Okay. And it went on for a few years up until about 2019. In the end of 2019, I had a 1-year-old at the time, Levi. And my wife said to me, you're spending too much time on your business. You're working in a cafe. You're doing your finance afterwards. So you've got to pick either the family or the business. So I had to let the businesses go. I sold my shareholdings in a cafe. I actually closed a chapter with my previous brokerage as well. Okay. And that was in the beginning of 2020. I went overseas for a fresh start. And that's when I started 12 Grains Capital. So in 2020, when COVID was born, 12 Grains Capital was born. Right. And we decided that we wanted to specialize in commercial and business lending. So
to clarify, before you continue, you came to Sydney. You said you found yourself on a plane. Was that because you were forced by your dad to go to Sydney? Why Sydney, and where did you come from? Sort of.
I was born and raised in Borneo, so it was an island in Indonesia. We share the island with Malaysia and Brunei. I grew up in a small city called Pontianak. I was born and raised Catholic, and I just couldn't find that I didn't think that I was the right fit back then. I've always wanted to get out of the city, to find something bigger, better. And I didn't know any better. So I decided that I wanted to go to Jakarta. But yes, it was sort of forced by my dad. It
was his idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right, cool. And so letting go of those businesses in 2019, like, what did you then, so you started 12 Grains after, so you got rid of 2 businesses to start one? Is that how it worked?
That's correct. Okay. So I got rid of everything, absolutely everything. I purchased a couple of properties as well. I drained my savings to start 12 Grains Capital with $0, because the mentality for me is I wanted to push myself as hard as possible. I've got a family to feed. I've got to keep the roof over my family's head. I've got to put food on the table, and I need to drive the business up very, very quickly.
And it's quite a big risk to take, right? Like, obviously, you've just had a 1-year-old. Like, you've got a couple of businesses which I presume is producing some income.
It was,
but just draining a lot of time.
It was. The first couple of years were really, really tough. It was really tough.
Okay.
And I reckon the lowest moment on the first couple of years was when I had to actually ask my wife if I could borrow money off her. That killed me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Out of interest, do you guys not share your finances? Do you guys have very separate finances?
No. So my philosophy when it comes to finances, family finances. Yeah. So my son's got his own savings. Mm-hmm. My wife's got her own savings, and I've got my own savings. So what I said to my wife is, I'm going to earn. We're going to spend our money on lifestyle, and you will get your obviously we'll get her own money as well, and we'll use her savings and Levi's savings as investment. So we're building wealth while we're spending my money, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Interesting approach.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So then tell us a little bit about 12 Grains. So you started it in 2020. Not a fantastic time to start a business when COVID's about to hit, but maybe you've got a different spin on it.
It was actually the best time for...
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for the best reason. I had no idea. I was away at the time, and while COVID was brewing, I was watching the news back in Japan, Korea, that there was this virus started spreading in China. I didn't take it very seriously at the time. Anyway, business-wise, what propelled the takeoff of 12 Grains was a call from a commercial real estate agent, as you remember. His name's Richard. He's based in Queensland. He rang me. He goes, I've got a client who is going to build 2 towers in the Gold Coast with no height restriction, and they're required $675 million. I didn't know where to place it at the time. I had zero idea about financing commercial. So I had to make a lot of calls whilst overseas. Had to wake up 2-3 o'clock in the morning, taking calls, taking meetings. In the end, we didn't end up settling on that deal, but I learned a lot. And from that deal, we actually started our own private mortgage fund,
right,
which we do currently.
Okay, awesome. So tell us more about, I guess, what it is that you currently do. So it's obviously commercial finance and
Correct.
Your own mortgage fund.
Correct. So 12 Grains Capital, we're essentially a private lending firm based in Sydney, and we have a finance brokerage arm as well. We've got a couple of fund managers behind us. We lend predominantly to business owners who are asset rich, cash flow poor. We give short-term finance, sort of a bridging loan. We fare very well in development finance, distressed asset financing. So any business owners that need a band-aid, so to speak, they need a bailout, they need quick money, 3 to 6 months time, because a golden opportunity is coming in, or because a receiver or a liquidator has been appointed upon their company for whatever reason. So we can come in, help them out, either sell at market price or continue with their project.
Okay. And I guess, who are the type of clients that you're tending to work with? Is it SME business owners? Is it developers looking to take on more capital to invest in certain regions?
A bit of both, really. 80% of our clients are business owners. 80 to 90% are business owners. And these businesses are in growth phase. So they need capital to grow. We need to see that they've got a bit of experience or history in trading to be able to say, here's how much we're willing to lend you. Developer-wise, yes, they need to have a bit of experience behind them as well, because you know how it is with construction building world at the moment in Australia. It's very tough, especially in the residential market.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell us more about now where 12 Grains Capital is. Like, how much staff do you have? Like, how long you guys been in business? So it's supposed to be 5 years now, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we have 3 brokers, 3 loan writers with 12 Grains Capital. We have 1 staff.
Okay.
So
being you.
Yeah. I think the last time we spoke, I mentioned that I didn't want to take on any staff at all, and that was my challenge to myself. That I didn't want to take on any staff. Everyone was under the ABN. We've got processing team. We've got credit team behind us as well. Overall, it's been a strong growth year on year, I would say.
And tell me more about like your, not despise, but like your strategy around not having staff, you know, just focusing on keeping it quite lean. Tell us more about that.
I came from hospitality background, and at the peak, I think I had about 90 staff under me. And I was thinking that's probably enough experience with staffing, because 99% of your problem is staffing. 99% of any business's problem is staffing. And I decided to not take on any staff. Everyone's going to be under ABN. I didn't need any staff anyway, not until probably in the middle of last year. Everyone's under ABN. If they settle a deal, they get paid commission, and the commission splits are very, very attractive to say the least. And I'm just providing mentorship on how to grow their business, because that's where my strength is. It's in scaling up companies.
Yeah. And what would you say, because naturally, to be able to build 2 businesses from scratch, a cafe and a mortgage broking business, to offload those successfully, and then to build 12 Grains Capital now, obviously determination is one of those things, but what would you say your number one success factor is?
Systems and processes. So if you could automate everything, try to automate everything. The less you think every day, the more the better you can focus on what's important. Let's take a very simple example. Your clothes, for example. All my clothes in my wardrobe are black and white. It sort of frees me up of decision making of what to wear during the day. That's one thing. Meal prep is another. And everything is very regimented during the day. Whatever my calendar tells me to do, whatever is on my calendar, I'll have to do it. No questions asked. It's the exact same with building cafes as well. Cafes are one of the very few industries that are the hardest to scale up, because you cannot replicate customer service, and it's very personal. A suburb in Mosman, for example, you might have a different demographic to a suburb in Redfern. 2 very different demographics. You could write your standard operating procedures. You can have everything standardized, but you cannot replicate customer service. So what I did was I documented how we should greet customers, or what sort of what goes behind greeting the customers. I'll give you an example. So what I said to the staff was, greet every customer like you're a very good friend of yours that you haven't met for a long time. And imagine when you come into a place, what was the one thing that stood out the most? It's not the food, it's not the drinks, it's the customer service. That's what people will always remember. And that is what's implemented in the business currently as well. 80% of our business is conducted over the phone. And how you speak to your clients, your intonation, your energy, whether you smile over the phone or not, people can hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much time do you spend in training? How much time do you spend in scripting? Is it a script, or is it primarily training and educating your team on how to provide customer service?
There is a script,
Yeah.
but I encourage the brokers to not follow the script. It's a guideline. I mean, you don't want to sound scripted over the phone.
Yeah.
You want to be genuine, but you need to ask a certain questions a certain way, so you wouldn't waste your time for half an hour talking about something that doesn't even relate to the loan processes.
Yeah.
Of course, getting personal with clients are very important. So yes, there is a script, but what's more important is the energy that you show over the phone. In terms of time training them, we do a recap every day.
Okay.
And we meet every week just for team building, going through all the wins and the challenges in person. And I do one-to-one with all my brokers as well every month, just to make sure that everyone's on track. Everyone is on board with our vision, mission, and we're on the we've got the right goal. We've got the same goal, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned sort of daily wrap-ups. Yeah. We do, we call them daily huddles at the start of the day, and then we don't wrap up at the end of the day, but we wrap up at the end of the week. I think that's made a huge difference to our business and how the team engages.
100%.
Particularly now, like not everyone's going to be in the office. So to be able to engage and have a little bit of banter at the start, set off the day on the right foot is definitely the best approach. When you're talking about scripting, it's interesting. I remember this story where a tailor called me and he was pretty much word for word saying this script. And I knew it was happening, but I was like, look, I'm going to let this go on. And then the conversation started. It got a little bit more organic, but then in the background, I could hear someone else who he obviously works with and sits right next to saying the exact same script. So it's never a good feeling. But, you know, in our business as well, we've thought about doing scripts. It just feels inorganic, doesn't it? Like it just feels inauthentic almost.
That's right. You don't want to be just a number, even though we're in numbers game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to be like number of calls. You know, this is my script that I ran. This is who was effective, but everyone's different. It's about consumer behavior.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And so in today's day and age, like what's one issue that you think needs changing in the business world?
We need to change the business world. I reckon everyone's gotten too good at running businesses. And I'm not joking about that, because I've seen a lot of businesses thrive. I've seen a lot of very little businesses that are actually, because information is ready, free, and available everywhere. You get these sort of podcasts talking about businesses. You get Homozy. You've got Chris Williamson and Stephen Bartlett, all talking about businesses, how to run your businesses, tips and tricks and everything. I used to have to read books because I didn't come from parents with business background.
Yeah. So
it was all self-taught. I had to put all the theories into practice. Nowadays, people are very, very good at running businesses. The one thing, being in my sort of industry, that I would say, people are taking too much loans for their own good, and not in a good sense, not in a good way. I mean, I'm selling loans. I must promote loans, but it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
I've got clients who come to me with loans up to their eyeballs, and they've got late payments here and there. They've got defaults up, left, right, and center. And whenever you tell them, we can't really help here, they're going to press and ask you, it's going to be something that you can do. I mean, yes, we have ways to help you. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. We can help you get another loan, but is it the right solution for your problem? Because if your business is struggling, taking on another loan is not the right solution. But when I say that a lot of people are getting too good in running their own business, it's because they've got that mentality that this is my business. I know my business inside out. I know it better than anyone else. So every time I said to them, we can't help you anymore here. Please have a chat with business restructuring professionals or a business turnaround professionals that might be able to help you renegotiate your debts to turn your business around, give you a bit of business advisory. They've got the mentality that, nope, these guys are not going to help. These guys just want my money. I know my business better than anyone else. $50,000, you give me $50,000, it's going to get me out of the hole.
Right.
And 8 out of 10 times, that's not what happened.
Right. So you'd say, 80% of the time people come to you needing more debt, and 80% of the time it's just not going to work out.
Correct. We turn down probably 90% of the inquiries that we get. Yeah.
And have you seen an uptick in inquiries recently? Naturally, there's personal pressures, I suspect. People are struggling from a personal cash flow perspective with interest rates increasing and mortgage repayments having to increase dramatically.
Yep.
Then naturally that puts a little bit of pressure on their earning capacity within their business and them needing to earn more. Are you starting to see more people come for more?
I wouldn't say there's an uptick. I would say it's quite a steady flow. However, people's appetite for loan or their perception of interest rate has changed over the years. When interest rate were really, really cheap back in the COVID time, we used to quote, as private lenders, we used to quote 6% rate, 8% rate maximum. And people were calling me crazy because we were charging too much for development finance for 8%. And now we're quoting 11%, 12%. They go, yes, we'll do it.
Yeah, right.
So there's a massive change in perception because they realize that they couldn't go to the banks or they've maxed out on their borrowing capacity because they've borrowed too much back in the COVID time. Whilst they needed to, say, develop this property, sell them, get their money back, rinse and repeat. As long as there is a clear exit strategy, we can lend to them. And there's always going to be a solution. Whether or not you're willing to pay for the price is a different story. And I call it an opportunity cost as well. A lot of people have started to understand what an opportunity cost is.
Right.
Yeah. Sitting on a site for how many years? It's going to cost them money. Not doing anything.
And it's interesting, right? I don't think a lot of businesses factor in opportunity costs. I know you were kind of talking about development as an example, but where do you see the opportunity cost issues coming up for businesses, and is that something you help out with clients as well?
The cost of inaction. I don't have any live example at the moment, but let's use myself as an example. The reason why I did a lot of things in businesses was more impulsive, so to speak. If I were to factor in the business opportunities that I didn't take back in the days, let's take Bitcoin, for example. I'm not telling anyone to jump on a crypto bandwagon. I was introduced to Bitcoin probably back in 2010.
Yeah.
And that was dirt cheap back then.
Yeah.
I knew about it. I had the money. I didn't believe in it. I still don't believe in it because it's not backed by anything. And if I were to buy just a couple of Bitcoins back then, so that's one opportunity cost. Obviously, you've got to factor in as well your capacity to take on that opportunity, whether it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, or it's just going to cost you a little bit of your income with a return that's a lot bigger. Well, that's risk for reward, right?
And so how many people come to you asking for a review on their current position and I guess some strategic consulting around where it is they need to be to take on finance? Because, it's interesting, particularly as business owners or anyone looking to take on finance, they often go, oh yeah, they come up with an idea randomly and they say, oh, I'm going to need finance. I go and get finance. But how many people come to you and say, I think in the next 12 to 24 months, I'm going to have the capacity for some finance to undertake this investment strategy? Do you get many people doing that?
We get a lot of people coming to us with that sort of queries, but we cannot lend based on that. We cannot lend based on what you believe your next 12 months to 24 months is going to be.
Sure.
We need to have a look at their trading history. How did they conduct their other credit facilities, the conducts on their other credit facilities in the last couple of years, for example, the last 6 months, as well as their business performance. When it comes to, I understand your question, probably more so homeowners come to me and say, hey, can you do better on this rate? We get very minimum, to be very honest, and there should be more. I mean, we're proactively reaching out to customers, asking them, hey, there's better rates out there. Do you want us to have a look into refinancing? And a lot of them, for some reason, ignored us. I reckon I'm guilty as well, that I'm comfortable with the banks that lending me money at the moment, and I'm not willing to go through that, the whole application process to move my mortgage somewhere else again, just to save a couple of bucks. As long as this is very interesting, because a lot of people think, okay, I can still afford that. I don't need to, shop around.
Yeah.
That is also an opportunity cost.
Correct.
But in saying that, we get a lot of clients who are coming to us and say, hey, I've got the next project lined up. Can you help me refinance and cash out from my property?
The reason why I say this is because the reason why I say this is because I see plenty of business owners sort of doing day-to-day, running their business, getting caught in the doing of their tasks, but they don't necessarily factor in what their strategic goals might look like and where finance can play a part. And so my question was more around, I'm pretty sure the answer is minimal amount of people come to you on this, but I feel like business owners need to be able to be in a position to be able to say, okay, well, in 12 to 24 hours, this is where my financial position needs to be. This is where my business needs to look like. This is what my profit needs to look like. This is what my gross revenue needs to look like, for us to be able to be in a position to invest strategically on whatever it might be at that point. I feel like most people view finance as a reactive measure,
correct,
versus a proactive strategic measure as to how I can use money to grow further.
Correct. And that's why it's very important for all business owners to have a mentor or an advisor. I have an advisor myself. I have a mentor. And it helped me massively because they could see all the blind spots that I couldn't see in my business, as well as personal life, I suppose.
And how did you go about finding that mentor? Did you just actively seek them out, or did you work with them?
So it really depends on, yes, I was lucky to find my mentor where I was still working in a cafe. Funnily enough, working in a cafe actually connected me with more people than doing finance or any other networking. Because when you serve people coffee, you're more approachable. You're not a threat, and people are willing to share more. Yeah. So you just keep asking them questions about their businesses, how they got there, and people are so willing to share. So I found my mentor that way, by serving coffee. That was many years ago. And one thing that I would say about finding mentor is find someone who's in the industry, who's made it in the industry, who understands the industry inside out. You don't want to find a mentor in financial industries whilst his or her strength is in hospitality, for example, or cafe operation. Although I'm not saying that there's no overlaps in between those two industries, but you wanted to know the strategies, you wanted to get where you wanted to be a lot quicker than, a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I mean, we spoke about opportunity costs, and I feel like that is a perfect way to circumvent how to improve your opportunity cost. Having a mentor who can guide you through that process to help you, take the opportunity, seize the opportunities that come about, so you don't miss out on that opportunity for sure.
Correct. And just having an expert opinion about the risk, the pros and cons of taking this decision versus that decision helps you a little bit.
Just a bouncing board.
Indecisiveness is the biggest killer for businesses.
Absolutely. And so, talking about killers in businesses, but not to view it that way, what's one key business risk that you've had to manage within your business or businesses that you see come up every day?
Creating a baseline, I suppose. So to have a strong baseline, that was the hardest thing to do for me personally. And I believe for many small businesses as well, because there is a something that we call a bank account accounting. And the way I describe it as bank account accounting, as a small business owners, you would check your bank account every end of the day. You go, oh, I've got a bit of money, so I've got a bit to spare to spend as well. My business must be doing well. When it comes time to pay your taxes, it's a different story. You gotta try to find a spare dollar to pay your taxes. So budgeting is very, very important. The risk of not knowing what's coming in and out of your business is massive. Having a good accountant is not enough. Having an accountant who can distill who can show you how to manage your money properly is a good start, but you need to be conscious yourself as well on where to put your money. And the way I do it is I have a few bank accounts, so I don't see that there is enough balance in my bank account that I can spend on whatever I want.
What do you do? Like sort of profit first system, or?
That is correct. Profit first.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, we've used profit first for quite some time, and it's a good little system to utilize naturally. I completely agree. Bank account accounting, is that what you call it?
Yes.
But also, I feel like, just to add to that, every business owner needs to be their own accountant to some degree.
Yep.
They can have an accountant, but they've got to know how to utilize their numbers. They've got to know how to read their numbers so they can digest it and make better decisions. Is that what you mean by sort of a baseline, is sort of understanding what it is that they need, where they need to be able to perform?
I get very, very nerdy with numbers because, again, systems and processes are a big thing for me. So the very first thing that I did whenever I started any businesses is create a spreadsheet. Here's the income, here's the expenditure, here's how much you need to provision for taxes, PAYG, this and that, everything. And I get it down to the very nitty-gritty. It's overwhelming for a lot of businesses, a lot of business owners. For one, I enjoy it because you can clearly see what's in the red, what's in the green, what's in the yellow, and you can provision for the future. And that can help you make decisions going forward as well.
So do you do that on a weekly basis, fortnightly basis, monthly? What do you do?
I do it on a monthly basis, but I update the spreadsheet almost daily. So every time something goes out, something comes in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so then monthly you just monitor how it's tracking.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, great. Awesome. And tell us more about your vision for the future, both personally and professionally. Where is David going? Where is 12 Grains Capital going?
That's a very interesting question. I am a firm believer that I've got somewhat a vision of a goal of where I wanted to take the company. I wanted to take the company global. How we're going to get there, I have no idea. But as long as you're pushing forward in the right direction, whatever come your way could be a blessing or will be a blessing, depending on how you see it. And I believe that the more you put it out there, the more you're going to attract your manifestation, I suppose, if you call it. I know that I wanted to take the company global. I wanted 12 Grains to be a household name, not just in Australia, but globally as well. And omnipresence was actually the chant.
Okay, right. And so how do you view it? Like, what does it feel like in 5-10 years' time?
It's more of a personal challenge. It's not a goal.
Okay.
I'm sure that we're not going to get there in 5 to 10 years' time.
Yeah.
But if we get there, we get there. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am the person who views life as meaningless. There's no meaning for me. I have no real goals in life. I have no real attachment in life. If I lose everything today, I'll be fine. I can go out with nothing and I'll be fine. Leaving a legacy is not a big thing for me now that I have a family, and that's why I have you spend my money and keep your money and invest it somewhere else to build the wealth for the next generation. It's just, I reckon, just keep going through. I have no idea where I'm going to land in 5 to 10 years. It's just keep taking the challenge.
So then what keeps you going, David? I mean, because naturally, it's quite easy to be like, okay, life is empty and meaningless, and it's like, not worth living in some instances, some people might say. But the way I view it, I also agree. I agree life can be meaningless. However, doing that allows for space to create. And that is the exciting juice of life that allows you to create newly, something from nothing. What is it for you? What's your take on that?
What keeps me going? I would put it to discipline. It's, even though you hate doing whatever you do every day, you still get up and do it. It's not for your own sake. It's for the sake of people around you. I know that some people would say that, you're just living to please people. No, not really. My family, I would work for my family, but no one else. So if I were to put it to one thing that keeps me going, it'll be my family.
Great.
And you've recently joined the fatherhood as well.
Yeah, I have.
How's that going to?
She's beautiful. Yeah. She's now 5 months old. And it's the best experience for anyone who is thinking of having children. I strongly recommend. It gives you another layer of purpose, most certainly.
Correct.
I always knew, my wife and I always knew we wanted to have a family at some stage if we were lucky enough to have a family. So, we were lucky enough to start one. And we're having the best time. So it is going well.
Did it change your mindset, your paradigm?
Did it change my paradigm? I would say no. Like I was very clear on what life would look like anyway. Like very early on, I said that. I mean, did it amend it for you when Levi was born? Now he's what? Now 6 years?
Yeah, he's turning 7.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah. Look, I wasn't a big family person. I am now, because the big thing. Well, we went through some of the toughest years in our marriage as well.
Right.
The last couple of years.
Right.
And it made me realize something. So yes, it means a lot now to me. When it sort of happened in the first year, in the early years, I didn't realize how big it was. And I was just too focused on, I guess, challenging myself, I wanted to see how far I can push with everything. And I pushed far enough. With
a reduced amount of time.
Correct.
That's one thing I've learned for sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, mate, thank you, David. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been
Thanks for having me.
pleasure to have a chat. There's been some great points of wisdom. So if people want to reach out, LinkedIn, Instagram, what's the best way to reach out to you and find you?
LinkedIn, we're on all socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it.
Perfect.
YouTube.
David, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Socius, thank you for joining us today. Please hit the subscribe button if you've enjoyed this episode. And if you'd like to be part of the Socius community, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay in touch. Cheers.